Chaos is brewing in Venezuela. The food riots have begun. The suffering will continue to expand. Political tension has long gone and has moved into a state of panic and revolt. Deaths are mounting and the frequency has increased as well. Strangely, it's not understood in the mainstream media that this isn't just a Venezuela problem. Venezuela is one domino of many who will burn. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we will discuss the issues going on in Venezuela right now at this moment. Right here you are seeing a very interesting image. Opposition supporters clash with riot policemen during a rally to demand a referendum to remove President Nicolas Maduro in Caracas. So what we are seeing right now is the political tension escalating, and you get this. This reminds me a lot of what happened in Greece, for example, where you had clashes which became violent because many times they do, whether it's provocateur, provoked, anything, but it seems to go from peaceful or, let's say, linear to being out of control. And that is happening right now in Venezuela. Going into this here, it was around noon when a food truck rolled up to the Venezuelan state-subsidized supermarket just east of the capital. To the fury of the long line of people waiting out front, the cargo wasn't unloaded. Instead, soldiers took it away. And this is something that is not looking pretty because you have such a limited amount of supply to begin with. We want food, the crowd roared. In protest to no avail, some tried to run after the truck. People are desperate. And this is the kind of thing that has been happening. Not just now, it's actually been going on for years, but now it's hit that breaking point. Some call it the tipping point with Gladwell, of course. Under the state of emergency imposed by Maduro, the military, along with the government-organized civilian committees, ensures that food packets are delivered door to door in order to, as officials say, cut out the black market operators. Regardless, the people are suffering. That's what's important. And they'll come up with any scheme like shortening the work week to 2 days to try and prevent it. Maduro has this, policy right now that's in place that says, look, I'm a dictator, but just for a short period of time. And if I'm a dictator, I can fix the problems. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. Look at this. Demonstrations against price increases across Venezuela turned violent today as thousands of protesters threw stones at the police, broke store windows, and looted businesses. Hundreds of people were reported injured. Now, sounds a lot like what's happening right now, except the fact that this was actually in 1989. The violence was most severe in Caracas and surrounding communities where gangs of youth wearing hoods blocked the streets, set fire to buses, garbage piles, and attacked policemen with rocks, homemade weapons, and firearms. So this right here, violence, which was widespread, rioting, looting, chaos, burning, deaths. There were a lot of problems in 1989, and this in fact, wasn't necessarily directly over the food, but what they were talking about is rising prices. So think about this for a second. In the country you live in, what if the prices rose so dramatically? Now, did you think the people of Venezuela saw these coming in either case? I'm sure perhaps if you live in the United States or Canada, UK, Australia, whatever, you generally feel a sense of stability. More so than certain countries, perhaps like Venezuela. But none of these countries, if you talk to the people who are from them, who are currently or have experienced a hyperinflation. If you've ever personally, and I mean this personally, ever spoke to a person who had lived through this or is living through this in some way, Did they ever see it coming? And you will know that in most cases that I found personally, they never thought it could happen. And then it happened so fast, they didn't know what to do. So this is what worries me very much. Look at this. There are large queues to shop in cities and towns across Venezuela, but it is more in hope than expectancy. From toilet paper to beer, there's a shortage in the country of everything that includes food, which is sold at subsidized prices. It's in an economic meltdown. The people are ready to, quote, explode. Opposition leaders have warned. Now, we don't know what's truly going on there. We've seen the pictures, we've seen the videos, we've seen documentation. But ultimately, we don't know 100% of the truth. Because, of course, if the opposition leaders are mentioning it, you don't know if it's propaganda or true. But I would have to say the people of Venezuela have been hurting for quite some time. And we do know that there are food shortages. Even the current government is admitting basically everything that's happening. It's really the reason behind it that is being argued. We still have not found a place where we can get rice, pasta, butter, anything so we can give our kids something to eat. I am tired of it. How is it possible that they have us in the situation when they aren't giving us any information, there isn't any food for us to take home? So they have one way to get that food home through the subsidized pricing. The government is basically providing them with this, and guess what? They're struggling to get it. There's long lines. There are food riots occurring right now. The people who are simply trying to get enough for their families are struggling. And this isn't going to get any better. If the price of oil goes back to a high rating, a high number, and they can basically push that oil out into the global economy, they may start to do better. But if oil stays subdued where it is, and you get a lot of countries perhaps choosing to do business elsewhere, maybe they're going to go to alternative sources of energy, although I don't think that isn't going to come online necessarily right away. You may have a different, a change of scenario for what's going on here in Venezuela. Maybe they can't recover from that. And if that's the case, what do you have happening? Well, you have a country that literally the earth breaks underneath it and swallows it whole. Look at this. Okay, I can't actually show you the images from this. I just looked at it for 2 seconds. I had to back away. So if you want to see some disturbing images, if you're okay with that, this is the one you want to check out. This is the article. No electricity, no antibiotics, no beds, no soap. A devastating look at inside Venezuela's crisis-hit hospitals where 7 babies die a day, bleeding patients lie strewn on the floor, and doctors try to operate without tools. I mean, this is a disaster. It's not a disaster waiting to happen. This is a disaster. This is the end of Venezuela. And Venezuela claiming to have the best healthcare in the world after Cuba. The hospitals are filthy, supplies run low, electricity is shut off. We know that. We know the electricity is being turned off in many parts of the country. And the people ultimately, I guess I'll just mention this now, are not prepared. And, it's a little too late to do that right now because they are already in a crisis. So when you have people who are prepping now, perhaps they're in the US, and they're prepping, and they're storing food, they got their garden, they've got permaculture, they've got a water filter, and they're doing all this. And a lot of people are saying, look, you're crazy. You're insane. What are you preparing for? You think there's going to be war? You think there's going to be nuclear bombs dropped from overhead? No. You don't need that to happen for it to be necessary to prepare. Because if you were able to provide a limited supply of electricity, just the basics, maybe you have some storable food, maybe you have some of the essentials, then it wouldn't really be a problem for you. But the situation has turned critical in Venezuela right now, today. These people clearly not prepared. Venezuela is preparing for the biggest military exercise in its history. Now, what do we have here? We have a country where the people are not prepared, perhaps the government sector not prepared, but they are preparing for the largest military exercise. Don't you see that happening all the time, where the nation is just struggling, it's hemorrhaging, and yet we have the government spending more and more money on its military? For reasons, doesn't even matter, because the more you pump money into the military, the more the people will suffer. That's ultimately what's going to happen. And it just never works out the way it should. Look at North Korea. The people are suffering absolutely. The only place they ever spend their money on is on the military. Not that it can do anything, but it ultimately goes to show you where the priorities lie. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, it basically helps me to push these videos higher up in the YouTube search rankings. So I do appreciate that every single time you hit the like button. Now, if you found this video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. If you head over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature, which will allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Just a quick little note, something I'm not sure I ever mentioned this before, but on Amazon, I have my book there. And if you buy a paperback copy, there is this feature that allowed me to say yes to, where you can get the Kindle, the Amazon Kindle version for 99 cents. So I think that's a good thing for people who had the paperback, they want it in a Kindle version, or perhaps they want to have their family, give the paperback copy away and keep the Kindle version. I think that's a nice thing, so I enabled it, and hopefully some of you out there will take advantage of that. Take care.